Good, we'll get a break from him for a bit. No, there is a reason. And it's FA Cup related as well, Felix, because you've written a book, which was launched, I think, at Craven Cottage, was it not?
Yes, no, I've gone to Craven Cottage to read bits about Fulham out, which has been awesome. But I've written a book this year where I've gone to every single round of the FA Cup from extra preliminary to the final. So that's like, I can't remember, about 15 odd rounds. And what I thought was, you could tell a really succinct story about English football from going to the very lowest level to the final.
15 chapters.
Exactly, but also England, about what football means. So it travels across football, from that. And then obviously it becomes a very personal story as well. But then I end up going with mates who... Sharky, the producer of Tailenders, takes me to Everton, so it's about his story and connection to Everton and how all that kind of thing. So,
whatever will be
exactly
a matter of life in football.
Exactly, whatever will be, because that is what you hear sung at every single FA Cup game, no matter if it's Penrith in front of 200 people or the final.
But isn't that, we're of a certain age, well, I am. But a lot of that, I think, in England... the UK is still very much what football is about. So when we talked on last week's podcast, for example, about the kind of, the 3 p.m. kind of blackout, whether it should still be with us, and I'm arguing that it should be because got to encourage people to go. Got to encourage people to go to games. I still think that's so much of what football is about. To the degree, if somebody said to me tomorrow, you're never allowed to go and watch Premier League football again for whatever reason, I'd be like, no, I'm all right, that's fine. There's plenty of other football for me to go and watch, and it'd be the type of stuff that you've just been to watch.
Ian, it's so interesting you said that, because one of the games, fortunately for me, is AFC versus MK, which happens to be the first round of the FA Cup. So that becomes about why do we actually go to football and displacement and that kind of thing. And a lot of the AFC fans I spoke to said exactly that, really, that as soon as you just reframe that going to Man United could be going to Croydon Athletic, it's actually exactly the same experience. And you're actually like connected more to an actual community where what I learned in the early rounds is like there's this serious and real authentic friendliness to lower league football matches, which you don't actually get at the highest level, of course, like anything, because you're at a more sort of a popcorn Americanized experience.
It's interesting you say that, because I had the luxury of refereeing in the extra preliminary rounds when I was coming through.
No way.
And I tell you what, them games were more important to them clubs than somebody in the third round or fourth round of Premier League side they took the FA Cup probably to maybe I wouldn't use the word arrogance, but they weren't that bothered about the FA Cup. But these teams who are playing in the first round are going from the extra preliminary to the first round. Financially, it's huge. And if you I remember Bedlington Terriers, they're a Northeast club, and they got to the second round, and I think got beat off Notts County in the second round. They beat a Football League club in the first round, and it was incredible because they got a home tie. And for that club, even though it wasn't on TV,
massive finance.
It was huge, but it was just for the town, just how the selling the scarves. It was just amazing to see. But you don't see that in the third, fourth, fifth round. I know a lot of the lower league sides, very rare, especially in the non-league sides, very rare get it past probably the second round. Maybe into the third round, but
totally,
it's a complete wonderful.
The analogy that I use in the book is Tamworth Tottenham, wasn't it, last year? It was a great one. Sorry, excuse me. Accrington Stanley Liverpool was one, I think, as well last year. But in the book, the analogy I use in the third round is like, the old films where like someone's stranded at sea and they think they found refuge on a rock, and then it turns out the rock's a fucking massive Godzilla and it eats them up. That's what like lower league football is with like Man City or whatever. Like, oh, this thing, posh. Like,
we'll have that.
Yeah, exactly.
You touch on something really interesting for me as well, Felix. I haven't followed it from those preliminary rounds, but what I don't understand is that English attitude to the top football team, right? So Wembley, a quiet atmosphere. You've just enjoyed those brilliant FA Cup atmospheres, but then you also follow cricket really closely. You wrote a beautiful book about cricket as well and what it means to England cricket fans. But I don't understand how the England cricket team can have that loyal, loving sort of, I don't know, it feels like a proper support. And then the English football team can have this really, I don't know, it feels odd. Like the atmosphere doesn't seem right to me.
You're talking about Tuchel.
And he was criticising the fans this week. But then if you compare that to the Scottish fans, right? I love following Scotland. Actually, a lot of the time, this will get me loads of grief, but it's probably because there are fewer Rangers and Celtic fans there. When you're standing next to a guy who supports Elgin and Huntly and lads from the Highland League, and you're following Scotland. I'm a Hibs fan. We don't get to win a lot, but when you're with Scotland, there is a different feeling.
So
but with England, I don't know.
Felix,
what's the difference for you, Felix? The question is, what's the difference between following England cricket and England football?
I'm sure you guys have got a more interesting thing to say about what Gordon has than I do. But the difference between English football and English cricket is that there isn't the same tribalism at county cricket level of anything. So the only thing to support really is a national team to really get your teeth into. And so I would always identify more as a Fulham fan than an England fan. It would be more important to me than Fulham win games than England do. And that's something that's sort of crept in over time. The one thing I will say is I've just got my nephew into football who's 8 years old, obsessed with Fulham. The very cool thing about it is I'm watching him learn to read, learn to communicate with adults, learn like about the world through football. It's like a beautiful thing. But he's into England. He wants England to win. So you realise it's all...
Is it because of a player,
the atmosphere at England? It's almost like children, isn't it?
But also,
do you know what I mean? It's
also remember
the sound of it is children.
Yeah. Remember that I've been to two Ashes Test matches in Australia at Adelaide, where my sister lives, and the one that we won in 2010 is probably the most incredible sporting things I've ever been to. Yeah, the one when Cook just got
casually says it, doesn't he?
So anyway, and so I have experienced a bit of that, and I think the difference, Gord, is that if you watch an Ashes series, that's the highest level of cricket you'll ever watch. Mm-hmm. It's not like that in football. People in England would say that the highest level of football is probably the Champions League final, or watching Liverpool versus Manchester City. They would say that what the England team produce certainly against Latvia or whatever, like the other night, that's not the very pinnacle. Whereas in cricket, it is.
It is.
So I think maybe that's. But also, Felix, you'll know this more than me. Am I right? I think there's quite a bit of crossover. Quite a lot of football fans follow England cricket abroad because you see all their flags with the football teams on, don't you?
Well, what I like about the football team is that it's obviously the reserves sometimes of smaller teams. So you often see the flags of like Hull City, Bradford, because they don't get those days and they get them with England. I've got a question for you guys. If Fulham were an international team, where would we get to in the World Cup?
Really good question.
Would we be because I think we'd be like semi-finalists.
That's interesting, yeah.
Well, in this next World Cup,
do you know what I mean? Like Brentford could win the. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah.
Where would those teams get to in a World Cup?
I think you've answered it. I'd
semi-finalist,
quarter-final.
Yeah, like with Bournemouth. Yeah, I do think.
Yeah. Actually,
Mark disagrees.
I'm saying nothing.
No, why not?
So what you would say, Manchester City would win it, or Arsenal would win it?
Yeah, I would say
Spain. Do you think Man City would be? I suppose what would you do?
Really good debate. It's a really good debate.
I reckon every team, the top 3 or 4 in the Prem, would all win the World Cup.
Yeah.
I genuinely think that.
Yeah, it's a really good.
It's a good. Is that because of the togetherness?
Yeah, I was going to say that's a massive. If you're training every week,
is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, not like personnel, like 11 versus 11, like do it like a sort of computer thing, but just like actual football team, what you see every week and what we see internationally. I think Arsenal beat.
I think it's a great shout. You could argue, for example, if you
don't say Arsenal, please.
Right,
we'll have Henry the producer getting excited there.
If you go back to say I was going to say City, but let's say Liverpool. If you go back to the great Klopp side, without going naming them all, but we know with Mane and Salah and Firmino and I'm mentioning them all now, and Van Dijk and
Robertson.
And Alisson and Trent and Peake Robertson, would they have a chance of beating France in a World Cup final? Yes,
it's a great debate.
If Eddie Hearn was listening to this right now, he'd probably think about putting that on as a spectacle. It would be great to see
the World Cup winners versus the Champions League winners.
That's a game pre-season you would watch.
Yeah,
that's a game, isn't it?
But then who do you play for though?
England against Newcastle. Who would Gordon play for?
Exactly. Yeah, both.
What a great debate.